Hi, Chris and Emilee. We are so happy to have you guys on our show today. We just love having like-minded guests, and we are very excited for this conversation today. And before we kick off, one thing we just want to start off with right out of the gate is what is, if each of you can answer, your non-negotiable for each day when you start your day?
Non-negotiable.
Well,
exercise for me.
Yeah, yeah, probably for both of us.
Type of movement. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, not always to start our day, because just due to different timing, it might not be the first thing we do in the day. So then therefore, if you go truly down to the details of it, it's probably coffee and journaling for me. No.
Oh, nice. And what about you, Emilee?
Some type of movement, whether it's just some mobility in the morning or, the morning workout, or that's just what wakes me up and makes me feel alive.
Yeah. So what did you do today? What was your workout today?
I swam with friends. Yeah.
Nice.
Outside in the fresh air.
Oh,
that feels nice. I was jealous. Trust me, I was jealous too. I was like,
we do swim outside all year round here, for better or for worse.
Oh,
yes. And today was a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Well, it was great because I wrote the workout.
Oh.
Nice.
We modify as we see fit.
You guys can get the theme here already.
Yeah. I really want to ask, this is totally off topic, but how many hours a day do you guys work out?
Oh, but I mean, in a weekly basis, like during the week, it's, 60, 90 minutes, depending on.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're normal humans
so it's not a 4-hour
responsibilities of life. Yes. It's our weekends that tend to get a little bit longer, or if, he's training for something bigger right now. So,
or you're training for something.
Or I mean, it ebbs and flows, but we're normal humans from that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. And we actually pride ourselves on that. That you can relate. I mean, there's definitely athletes that do a lot more training than we do. Let's say they have kids and a job and family and so forth, and responsibilities and community and church and so forth. But I think it's important, and I think we both respect that pretty well, that it just go with the ebbs and flows of life. And there's phases where training does become a little bit more of a priority because of an event coming up. But then there's times where it's like, all right, that family or work takes the priority due to just because there is no event, as well as that's what life calls for. And it's important to maintain some sort of balance with that. I don't like the word balance, as Emilee knows, just because it's hard to, people think balance means equilibrium, like perfectly balanced, and that never happens. So
I think what comes up for me is it's the consistency over the years that pays off, that allows you to have that flexibility of sometimes going up and sometimes coming down. And then something Chris talks about all the time is having that intention in a workout of, what do you need to get out of it? So for example, if I look at a workout that I maybe don't have time for, you look at what's the meat, what do I need to get out of that today, and get it done in the least time possible. Yeah. So you still get the benefits of all that. And yeah,
absolutely.
That's such a good point. And we've talked a lot about intention on this show, but really not with respect to a workout. And that's not something I think I necessarily do that I want to start doing. And like you said, if you only have a short amount of time, don't dwell on the fact that you only have 20 minutes or 30 minutes. How can you get the most out of that 20 or 30 minutes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. Yeah.
And intention in general, like we live in a world where showing up has become the answer. And, showing up is great, but it doesn't really maximize the limited time you have. And showing up with intention, now we're really moving the needle, because just examples, right? Like people show up at the gym, truly just show up. And then they look around and see, what am I in the mood for today?
Right.
Well, that's not training, that's exercise. Right. Training means you have a prescription and you have an intention of what the desired outcome is today, what you need in order to achieve future outcomes. And so you already know going into the gym what you want to do, how you want to do it, and what qualifies as a good session. And so you pile those together. Now you're really moving forward, whether it's at work, whether it's with family. Intention works very similarly, whether it's with nutrition. Like, what is it I'm doing here? Why am I doing it? And what defines a good outcome? And that quickly starts steamrolling a really different quality of your actions.
Well, and for me, for the demographic that I work with active women going through perimenopause, and as hormones change, you do have to have some intention in that workout. Like I talk to a lot of women where I'm running or I'm hiking or I'm going to yoga or I'm doing something and it's not working. I'm still gaining weight or I'm still doing this or that. It's like there are scientific reasons and ways to really get change, and that's going to change with your hormones. So whether it's a outcome for an endurance event that you're doing or an outcome for just feeling better, adapting to your changing hormones, stimulating bone, stimulating muscle, whatever it is, having some intention in that workout is what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know we just kind of dove right in, but let's back up for a minute and hear who you guys are and your stories in a nutshell. And I know you guys, are in separate fields, but very overlapping fields, and, how you guys work together and how you ended up where you are today. Very succinctly.
Ladies first.
I've been an endurance athlete for 25 years, I think, and in and out of this health and wellness space for almost just as long. Nutrition came about because of, hormonal shifts, gut dysfunction, injuries. So led down a path of trying to heal myself. I also taught Pilates for a long time, working with those women and realizing, an hour a day, once a week isn't really going to change anything. So that led to incorporating nutrition and movement. And then obviously my background in my own training and what I've learned along the way. So all of my work comes from mostly my own life journey in this space. And Chris, what he does, I always say to people, like, I do everything he doesn't. So together, we can figure it out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm the intensity. She's the empathy.
Yes.
I like it.
He says, why don't you do this? Just get it done. And I say, well, what's getting in the way?
Yeah. Well, you got the yin and yang going on there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So
I work with most of his athletes. And then, as you know, we both work with 29. And from there, it's just, there's a lot of active people in my life and obviously only his life.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Well, I've been an athlete all my life. I started out as a swimmer. I had a first life as a swimmer, and that culminated after the 96 Olympics. I swam in the 92 and 96 Olympics. Then I moved to triathlon, and I was a pro triathlete and searched for a second life. And that was successful as well in winning a few Ironmans, and then also the World Championships in my age group in Kona, and then moved on to ultra running. That was the third life. Spent some time there and won some races there and did some adventures in that. And I would say for the past 4 or 5 years as an athlete, just have been dabbling in a variety of different other endurance adventures, multi-day stage races, adventure races, self-curated stuff. So the longer, the better, the deeper into the mind that these events take you, the more curious and excited I get about them. And so that has led me down a path of coaching a lot of mindset, a lot of executives around this mindset and the endurance mindset and what we can learn about ourselves while we're out there. And it becomes this larger conversation, deeper conversation with a lot of them that I call working in instead of working out. And combining that at the same time, that in those hours that you have to yourself while you're training, while you're working on yourself physically, you have an opportunity to work on yourself mentally, spiritually, and in some sort of self-actualization. And so most of my training these days and coaching is via endurance to have a deeper conversation with a lot of people. And so that has led me down a path of executive retreats and coaching, as well as, military and special operators, as well as a variety of different athletes on all kinds of crazy adventures. I sort of have stepped out of that box of really working too much in a, organized event space. And it's become more, especially since COVID, more self-curated. Whatever crazy ideas people think of, they somehow seem to find me and migrate towards me with regards to, well, how can I do this? And can you help me?
Yeah, that's amazing. First of all, like all of the things you just mentioned. And I know Stephanie and I both have been talking about this a lot since learning about 29029, which we really want to do in 2024. But it's like, I just ran a half marathon, which isn't that exciting, but for me, it was a big deal.
Plenty.
And I'm just like, okay, what can I do next? Like, it's like, I can see where you can get caught up, like go down that spiral, because it's amazing.
Or up that spiral.
Yeah. Or up that spiral. Yes. Yeah. Like, it's just amazing how exciting it is and how much value, like personal value and experience I got out of it, and how I just want to keep doing more.
Yeah. And I would challenge to question you of the things you learned about yourself and the confidence and the insights and the obstacles you overcame and the adversity you faced in your prep for it, not just physically, but also mentally, of not wanting to do things on certain days and following through anyway. And also your word and what it means to you, because you said you were going to do this. And so there's this tension tugging at us at these times when it's like, we don't want to do something, but we said we would. And from those little moments, quite honestly, we learn a lot about ourselves if we take a step back and recognize, man, I did that. I went through that. I went through that conversation. And look, if I can have that conversation about running a half marathon, where else can I have that conversation where I overcome that tension and I work with that sort of resistance to see, you know what? I've done it in the past. I've done it in other areas. I can do it now too.
Yeah, this is really powerful what you're saying, because I think, when we first started researching for this and thinking about, we're going to talk about like some endurance athletic events, you quickly went right to the mental space, right? And just the benefit and the time that you're spending when you're training and using that time, like you said, the reflection and when I look at people like you guys or any other endurance athletes, I'm always like, oh my gosh, how did they do it? Right? Like, I think a lot of people have that, like they're intimidated by it. They're like, I couldn't do that, whether it's physical or mental. But, if you're in, if you have all your working parts and that you can train for something, I think what you're almost saying is like anyone can almost do this, right? Because you have to get over the mental. You just have to want to.
Yeah. You just have to want to. And then I was also, as you were talking, thinking, the confidence you build in understanding what your body can really do makes you want to question, what can I do next? What else and it could be another event, a physical event, or it could just be some other area of your life that you want to do. But it probably has a ripple effect. I'm sure you see that with your clients.
Oh, for sure. Starting a business. Starting a business. Taking on a new chapter in life. Taking on a mortgage. All these things are intimidating and overwhelming and seem like a big chunk to bite off at one time. But for all of these things, there's a process and steps and along that journey that we can quickly build momentum and, again, learn so much about ourselves and discover what it is that we're good at, what it is we need to work on, or what I call blind spots or weaknesses, and, or areas of most improvement and areas of least improvement, we like to say, because if you're already good at something, that's the area of least improvement. But if you have something where you recognize, I need to work on that a little bit, that has the most improvement opportunity. And it's sort of, if you look at it from that perspective, it's actually sort of exciting. Like, there's a lot of runway here I can improve upon.
I was going to say, when you're digging into these spaces and you start to find either your self-doubt or your fears, or, maybe it shows up during your exercise or your chat, but it usually spills across other aspects of your life that you don't notice. So when you start fixing that relationship in one way, again, like it says, it ripples through. And whether it's you find that insecurity or relationship with yourself or relationship with exercise or relationship with your body, whether you find that in nutrition or you find that in the sport or you find it somewhere else, it's usually present in other aspects of your life too.
How we do one thing is how we do everything.
Absolutely.
So true.
I agree. So when you guys are working with people, do you find that you enjoy working with the person that's like, I've never run a marathon, or this is new to me, but I really want to do this? Like, is that a lot more difficult than someone that's like really fit and has run 10 marathons? And like, I'm just curious what that experience is like for both of you when you're working with a client.
To me, it doesn't matter what the client's trying to achieve. It matters how curious and open they are to the learning process. So I think each of them are just as fun. It's just a matter of how open and willing and how deep they can go or want to go or are curious enough to go.
Yeah. And it's a question for me of expectations, right? The experienced athlete already has expectations and a vision of what they're looking to achieve. And so the work is different there than it is with somebody brand new, because when they're new to endurance, it's exciting. You know what is coming down the road for them. And if done right, it's only going to change their lifestyle, change how they view themselves in the world. It's going to create an excitement and a confidence and a curiosity and a passion that can fuel a complete transformation in their lives. We're endurance beings. That's what the human being is. We were never the best. We were never the strongest. We're never the fastest to survive evolutionarily. We only are alive because of our endurance. And so when we apply endurance to our body, signals turn on that we didn't even know we have, because that's how we're optimized. That's how we developed over, thousands of years to run long, to persevere, to overcome obstacles while other creatures give up, run out of energy, fuel ourselves. All these things, when you continue to go down this path, you realize that's how we're optimized. And it turns on signals that not only physically, but spiritually and mentally really have a profound effect. And it like we keep saying, it spills into all aspects of our lives. And so it's exciting to see newer athletes get these little crumbs and morsels of insight that they go, oh, now I understand, or I see it, or I feel it. Or they go, wow, in the beginning, it's like, wow, I don't think I can run 3 miles. And, 6 months later, they're like, I woke up, ran 10 miles and took my kids to a soccer game, and it feels amazing. Like that's success for us. Yeah. That's success for us, where they're not just on the couch the rest of their Saturday beat up, but they fueled well, they're nourished, they're taking care of their body, they're getting sleep, they're exercising, and all those components together. And they feel like this new energy, this new persona, this new identity. And then, they even have more energy to give their families and their community and their surroundings.
And they understand the connection between the two, right? Yes. That the exercise is nothing without the nutritional foundation and vice versa.
Yep.
So let's dive into that a little bit. Can you, especially Emilee, like one, how do you guys work together from that aspect? And what are you doing with most of your clients when it comes to nutrition and the endurance piece? Like just talking about the two of them. And I think that's probably changed a bit over time. If we were having this conversation 10 years ago versus today. So what you're seeing currently, I think would be really enlightening for our listeners.
10 years ago, Emilee telling me what to do and me not listening. And eventually coming to the conclusion.
And then he'll go for a run and listen to a podcast and he'll come home and say, I heard this. And I'm like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I told you.
I think that's the story of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
That happens with my husband all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So everything he knows, he's learned from a podcast, not from.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
From our perspective, how we work together, I do a consult with all of his athletes when they sign up with him. And then depending where that goes, whether I work with them further or he can take it from there, depending where the athlete is at, whether they've had, previous experience with health professional, whether they have something going on, whether they have injuries, so that can take on its own, but that's initially how we start.
And within that, how it resonates. And for some clients, it resonates very deeply, how the questions you're asking and the deeper why around some of the relationship questions with food. Right. And so that's powerful to some. I mean, not for everyone, but for some. And so that becomes a meaningful relationship and meaningful exchange, and they will want to work further.
When I start working, what athletes' first question are, okay, they get out their pen and paper and it's like, well, what do I eat before, during, and after exercise?
Yeah, which is a great question.
Well, it is, but I think we said before we started recording, I mean, for a master's athlete or for somebody who's not going pro in this, it matters what you do across the board. And your meals should be before and after workouts. Again, we're not working out endless hours a day. And so it's understanding that. And then it's, well, I don't have time for that. Or because again, most of these people are professionals. They're trying to train, they have a family, and they think they're the only one that doesn't have time to come home and make a gourmet meal. And how do I do it? So that's the work that I do and again, depending on the athletes or persons, really, I mean, relationship to their body, their position, they see themselves in the family, whether they just prioritize everybody else instead of themselves. It's obviously a huge space. So nutrition doesn't happen in that silo. So when I work with people, we work on all aspects of what's getting in the way of you being able to implement this nutrition, your understanding of how your body works, and which, again, for men and women, it's a little bit different. And, what's the timing of your food? What type of food are you eating? That's going to change depending on who I'm talking to. But it's the consistency across the board that is going to pay off, just like training, right? If you just show up at the event and you've just done the weekend warrior training, your event is only going to go so well. But if you've trained consistently, it's going to go a lot better. Food's the same way. If you're just going to pay attention to what you eat before and after a workout and ignore the rest of it, you're only going to go so far. So it's about learning how to make it, the food and the exercise, a lifestyle, and get rid of whatever's getting in the way. And for people, that there's a lot of things that get in the way. As you guys know.
And Marty and I can relate to that a lot. You have to peel back the layers of the onion, especially with women. And there's a lot of emotional eating and stuff from childhood and body image and all that stuff. So I agree. It's so
just
important.
handing a meal plan, to fix, to go with your workouts is not going to work. Food is too triggering on so many levels. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's part education and part,
Well, food also fits into the larger mindset. If I'm going to be an athlete and I'm going to see myself as an athlete, so many think that's just the workout.
Right.
But the athlete's mindset and how I view myself begins with, what am I putting in my body? How am I treating myself? How am I taking care of myself? Because
what time should I go to bed so I can get up for my workout?
Yeah. All these things tie into, a lot of people ask me, well, do you have to be a talented athlete or some experienced athlete to have the athlete's mindset? No. Anybody can have the same mindset as a world-class Olympic gold medal winning athlete. It's a mindset. How do I prepare for this workout? How do I sleep? How do I eat? How do I care for my body? That has nothing to do with talent. It's all just a mindset. It's all just how I view myself and how I'm going to take care of myself. So if I'm running my first turkey trot, well, I can think about it the same way. How am I going to sleep? How am I going to nourish myself? How am I going to embrace this lifestyle? You can take on this lifestyle immediately. Nothing stops you from a mindset taking on the athlete's mindset right away.
And I think as you're saying that, I think what comes up a lot, in the people that we work with, there's so many conflicting messages in this wellness space, right? You should fast and you should not eat this and no carbs this and low and, endurance athletes, depending, I say that loosely. Just consistently active humans, I guess. You know,
like
you get a lot of those benefits from the exercise itself. And again, with some intentional training and with some strength training or whatever it is that we, kind of put together for a person individually. And some of those life hacks don't apply, or they get very confusing, or they can actually take away from what you're trying to accomplish. And, and that's not the fault of the individual. It's in our face constantly. I mean, they're getting so many messages. So there's a little bit of education, and again, helping those individuals kind of sort through which self-care practices, which life hacks, which ones are beneficial for them, which one fits with endurance training, which ones don't, what does that picture look like?
Like we both like to say, I mean, a nutrition plan, fasting strategy, a workout plan, a strength training plan, all those things look good on paper. But how to make that work for me and my life and my demands and my community and my family, that's the hard part.
Right.
Right.
And taking in consideration that person's daily stresses and whatever. Right.
Exactly.
And so these strategies, I think they're not bad. Obviously there's a time and a place for so many of them, and they can have great results. It's just sometimes it's not beneficial to do them all at once.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, like you guys had both mentioned, having that plan in place. And it sounds like it's like the way you two are working, if I'm understanding this properly, is that you're really individualizing it and tailoring it to the specific person and what their needs are. And whether they're a brand new athlete, running their first turkey trot, or they're an Olympian or whatever it is, you guys are able to really coach and tailor their plans to their lifestyles.
Correct.
And I think, again, there's no one size fits all, as we've been talking about, but just for our listeners out there, Emilee, I know there's a lot of women that are in this 45 to 55 age range. Mm-hmm. What have you seen just in general based on your clients? Like what shifts from a nutrition and a workout standpoint, from a training standpoint, have you seen be beneficial for most people in that age group? Just because I think some women are used to doing, like what I've seen is used to doing like all these HIIT classes for a long time, or very similar classes, go to the gym, every day, they're in great shape and they're doing the same workouts. And then all of a sudden they hit a certain point, maybe 40, 45, 50, and they were like, I can't do this anymore, and sometimes I think then they feel bad about themselves, or they wonder
Absolutely.
why, or, and so what could you share? What insight could you share based on what you've seen?
Yeah. For one, I think, this idea that, well, I don't know why the same thing I've been doing doesn't work all of a sudden is, it's a shame that we don't have more education again from the time women start getting their period, right? Like there is a hormone shift. There's several points in our life that the hormones shift dramatically from the time you get your period to the time pre and postnatal to this perimenopause phase. And those hormones have a huge effect on how our body responds to exercise, right? And the nutrition. So just one, educating women on how that shifts. But the big things is like with the HIIT training constantly, let's just use that for example, that's a huge stress, right? And so as we get older and our hormones shift and ovaries sort of wind down and making that estrogen, then the adrenals take over. And so again, our body can't handle the same amount of stress. And it depends for women, what's your overall stress load? And for men too. I mean, this goes across the board, but what's the overall stress load? That's where we have to look at. And I constantly hear, well, I use exercise to reduce my stress, or that's my stress release. And they don't understand that stress is stress is stress. The body knows one thing. Right. It's the same chemical reaction, whether it's exercise, whether it's emotional, whether it's life stress, whether it's environmental stress, food stress, whatever it is. So we have to look at that overall stress load. But this is where I think it goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about, having really intentional workouts. So again, women that go to classes and classes and classes all the time, they end up working in this kind of middle dead zone, right? Like that isn't creating change. It's not building an aerobic base, and it's not high enough to stimulate a shift or that muscle protein synthesis. So it's kind of differentiating the workouts. And then again, as we age, we just need more rest, right? So really having strong, intentional workouts and rest instead of this just cross the board, let me kind of run myself into the ground phase, which maybe we were able to do when we were in our 20s and 30s. Doesn't work going forward.
I was just going to say, and if women and young women had this information about how their hormones do affect their bodies at a younger age, we would know more how to train alongside with our cycles, which like I'm going to be 50 in like 2 weeks, and I'm learning all of this, at close to my own age.
Right.
Whereas had I known this 20 years ago, things would have been very different. Now I have 2 daughters. I'm like, okay, well, they are going to know, where they are in their cycles and what that means, how they should be eating and how they should be moving their bodies. And hopefully they'll be armed with way more information than I will.
I mean, don't even get me started on that. But I feel like I do wish our education in schools, the sex ed part, included a different level of information. I think until, I started diving into this area, I thought like estrogen gave me boobs and progesterone gave me a period, and that was pretty much it. So why do I need them? Right? Like go ahead, give me menopause. Like, why do I need them? And, learning that, how estrogen touches pretty much every cell in your body, and how the impact on your gut and the brain and the immune system and our bone health, how progesterone is calming and it like anti-inflammatory and all of these things, that it's really, really important that we continue to get our period for as long as possible. And it's not just to have a baby, right? So it is unfortunate that we don't start with that education at a younger age. And hopefully, again, in this space, a lot of us in this age group, as you girls know, like we do have teenager girls. And hopefully, I don't know about your teenage girls, our 3 don't have any interest really in listening to what I have to say. But I spit it out all the time, right? In hopes that there's something that sticks, and hopefully they'll become interested in it way sooner, and they'll know where to come when they are interested. But that women this age are learning and kind of waking up and seeing like, well, let's help these teenage girls. And again, I can't do it all. I'm just a one human, but I do hope that space continues to grow, because I think it would be impactful.
Yeah. And they're hearing more of it, and just in the general media as well. But the interesting thing, I have 2 thoughts on that, is that one, if this were men and we're looking to optimize for performance, this would have all been done 50 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
With regards to, we need to train and periodize our training in a certain way to optimize, testosterone stimulation and all this anabolic effects, which is interesting to me because, living in this, performance athletic space, even at the highest level. I grew up in Europe, especially Germany, where we learned a lot of this from the East German system, where they knew this. We've known this since the 70s on how to train for your cycle, because when they were stabbing drugs into all those women in East Germany to be the best possible athletes at the Olympics, they knew when to train and how to work through this. It's just that it was like, oh, taboo. Don't bug us with this.
Right.
And then the second thought with that is, especially in this phase of 40s, is learning strength training. And I have come to this later in life, partially due to Emilee, but the strength training aspect, if women can learn in their 40s how much fun and effective and powerful strength training is, then that way, when they need it even more and more in their 50s and 60s, for sure, it's not something intimidating, unfamiliar. You go to this big box and you're like, what's going on here? Like, there's nobody like-minded or similar to me in there. And you already know your movements. You have some confidence around it. It is, once again, a huge mindset shift, understanding how important strength is and gaining knowledge and confidence in it.
It's one of the first things that I have women do if they don't. And this is a self-confidence thing. It's a fear. They're intimidated. They don't feel, and it's always, I just don't like strength training. And let me tell you, they like it when they get the results. So they change their mindset on that. But it's getting them in there and getting them comfortable with it. And I think one of the most powerful ways to do that is just hire a trainer for a couple sessions and say, I want to learn some key movements that I can go in there and do myself, help them navigate it. And then we can take you from there. But we're not with everybody to see their form. They get scared. They're going to get hurt.
I also want to interrupt you there a moment. Like, also say to that trainer, and this is something that's missing big time.
Yeah.
Say to that trainer, my desired outcome is when I'm 65, 70, I can play on the ground and get up holding a child. When I'm 65, I want to be strong to squat, not wait, but just squat. Like, you have to give the trainer a clear description of who you want to be in 20 years, 15 years from now, so you can start the protocol now. Everything you are doing now prepares you for who you want to be in 10, 15 years from now. And your future self will thank you for two things the most: how you fed yourself, nutrition, and how strong you've remained. You do those two things, you're going to be a completely different person at 65 to 70 than you ever imagined you could be.
Maintaining your muscle is your life, your longevity.
It's the number one comorbidity effect. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
we
funny
couldn't agree
because,
more.
Yeah. And I, like, in my 20s and 30s, I would say I was probably doing cardio, 6-7 days a week with the Stairmaster and like all the iterations of cardio that kind of came through. And now in the last probably 8 years, I'm like strength training, 4 times a week and then doing other things to kind of fill in. But the strength training is like the main thing I'm doing because, Stephanie and I talk about longevity quite a bit. And like, I want to be skiing when I'm 80. And I know, there aren't a lot of 80-year-olds that are skiing, but I want to be that 80-year-old that's still downhill skiing and doing.
Just watch out for Gwyneth Paltrow coming at you.
I know. We were just talking about that.
I had to throw that in there.
On the Today Show. Yes.
Yeah,
oh my God. Okay.
Trust me, I'm happy she won her case, but it's just like, how random is that?
My brother was actually on the jury. Like, he did not get selected, but he was called for jury duty and was questioned for that case, which was kind of funny.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that would have been a fascinating one jury to be on. Pivot a little bit.
Sure.
Because we want to make sure, Chris, that we talk about your recent an endeavor we recently learned about, this 7X, this human performance project, that, if I'm not mistaken, includes 7 marathons, 7 swims, 7 skydiving jumps on 7 continents in 7 days. I can't even get that all out.
Most people can't.
Yeah. That's just like amazing and so impressive. Can you share this experience with us? Like, how it came about and what it was like and the purpose of it? Cause I know there's some, there was a purpose behind it, an intention.
Yeah. I was approached by some veterans who used to be, and some of them are current special operators in the Navy and in the Army, as in SEALs and Delta Force and so forth. And they were doing this project, 7 skydives, 7 marathons, 7 plunges on 7 continents in 7 days in order to raise awareness for mental health and suicide prevention. It's quite prevalent in the special operators community. And in the military in general, it's way higher, like 4 to 5 times higher than in the regular American population. And so it's something that they have been studying and working on quite closely with the VA and so forth. And so it was about putting our bodies, or their bodies, through as much stress and turmoil and fatigue and breaking them down in order to have a better understanding on how to build it back up. And so that's why it was also lack of sleep and changing time zones and extreme temperatures and, doing these marathons, which for a bunch of bigger guys on concrete in different places around the world in 7 days was a completely new challenge, along with the stress of skydiving, where it's a completely different sympathetic response than, let's say, an aerobic event like a marathon, and then shocking the system with a cold plunge and so forth. So, yeah. And they approached me about 8 months prior to the event, which we did in February. They asked me to come along and take part. And in February, off we went. And I'm happy to say that they all came out of it healthy, fit, excited. And now they're all bugging me to do, a 50-mile run and a half Ironman and all kinds. I'm like, wait a moment, we unleashed something completely opposite of what we're looking to do. We actually lit a fire in them that they're now completely excited to do. But the cause continues on. They're doing a documentary on this, a manual for future operators as well as current operators. And what that manual is about, not only from a mental health standpoint, but, here we have some of our highest performing athletes representing our country and putting their life on the line in so many ways for us, serving us. And yet they know nothing about nutrition. They know nothing about supplementation. They know nothing about rest and recovery. They know nothing about strength training other than what their buddies taught them. They know nothing about, stress loads, adrenals, things like that. And so getting a better understanding for them so that they can perform at a higher level, not just when they're performing, meaning serving our nation under extreme circumstances, but also when they're home, how to recover, how to recharge, how to rebuild, how to come down into a parasympathetic rest and relaxation state. Because without those swings, the mental health goes down the hill very quickly. You can stay in that fight or flight, completely stressed, cortisol levels through the roof phase for so long, whether man or woman. And that's sort of the key learnings and understanding and highlights of this expedition.
Wow. So did you train them in the 7 months prior? Were you guys the trainers?
Yeah.
So you were teaching them some of these things about nutrition?
Yeah. So I got them all ready physically for marathons, for 7 marathons in 7 days. As well as just also a lot of lifestyle and mindset insight, sauna, cold plunge, supplementation. We had a pretty big team. We had a lot of the therapists and nutritionists and dietitians and massage therapists and doctors and so forth on this team from what's called JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, and out in Norfolk, Virginia, as well as people from San Diego. So it was a big, trust me, a big team. But so we had inputs and insights and collaboration amongst many different fields of expertise. And so, it was a incredible privilege, but it was also so exciting to work alongside some of these experts.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And what was it like running a marathon in Antarctica? Had you been there before?
Yeah, well, that is the only one that got pulled because of weather, extreme weather.
Oh, okay.
So we were going to fly over, and 3-4 hours prior, because the risk of us getting snowed in, weathered in there, not snowed, they always have snow, weathered in there and not being able to get out. And we had to be on 6 continents at certain times and a plane waiting for us in Cape Town. So we had to then pivot and do the first marathon in Cape Town instead before we went on to Perth, Australia, then on to Dubai, Egypt, London, Cartagena, Colombia, and Dallas, Texas.
Wow. And Emilee, you got to bring some of the children and watch him in London. Yeah. Is that what we understand?
Met in London. Yeah, we met in London. We spent a week in London to see him for 3 hours. Yeah.
Of those 3 hours, I'd say an hour and a half we were at dinner together, but the rest of the time it was like, hi, bye.
Yeah. That's incredible. And not only from a physical standpoint, but just what you were doing to help these people from a nutrition, the mental aspect, as you said, just given the mental health issues with anyone, in that's serving our country is incredible. Yeah. And just a gift that you're giving them for their life and their families. I'm sure it's, like you said, it's having this ripple effect. And, not everyone's going to be able to take on something like this, but how can someone find their own version of taking on a challenge? And it could just be their first turkey trot, like you said earlier, doing something that they never thought possible. It's really like about unleashing that potential. And that's what you're doing with your clients, right? Unlocking that potential. Because I think, as you said earlier, which I thought fascinating, is that all of us we're all endurance beings.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is almost every single one of us can train for an endurance event because that's how we evolved as humans.
And women are really efficient at it.
Yeah, they are.
Because we're efficient at everything, right?
Everything
we do.
I mean, we're
guys
better, but whatever.
I like to guys like to run through the wall. Women like to just be smart, look at the wall and go, well, it's way easier to walk around this wall. I'll meet you on the other side.
Or, he's going to bust through it and then you'll go through easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you just used sort of my mission statement, right? And I don't know if that was sort of your intention there, but that is it. Unlocking an endurance potential that lies within all of us via health and fitness. And so, yes, there are steps we can all take, but that's the key right there. Taking the steps, aiming at something, understanding that we're designed for this, and noticing that these small steps lead to big actions and big changes. But it's never this prepare for 100 different things or prepare for this major thing. It's all these little steps that you can take on a daily basis. And it's not necessarily a 3-hour workout like people seem to think. Endurance, I don't have time for that, 90 minutes or 2 hours. No, it starts with 20 minutes, right? I always say with endurance especially, and for those of us who are pro in something other than the sport they endeavor, it's that as many little workouts make up the endurance. It's not all just at once. So many people think, I have 3 times a week, I have these long workouts. No, 6 20 minutes workouts is just as effective. You just got the same volume in as, 3 longer workouts. So it's just little steps and chipping away at the bigger desired outcome.
And again, I think both of Chris and I, like the coaching that we do with clients is to help them incorporate this into a lifestyle, something that they can maintain and not just, again, here's all this stuff that you have to do right now for this one event that you can't sustain. Yeah. It's how do we teach them how to do this in a sustainable way that leads to a lifestyle that they can embrace and enjoy for a long period of time versus, a quick diet or a quick event, just throw everything in. It's about how do you manage this across your life so that it can be sustainable.
I surely define success with an athlete, not on their result, not that they achieved what they wanted to achieve, but they finish and go, now I'm curious to do more. Mm-hmm. They say that.
And their family doesn't hate that, right?
Like, exactly. There's a thing for sure.
They take on this endurance and then they're so absorbed by it. But that then they can't manage the rest of their life, right?
And I did it wrong too. That doesn't define success for me. If they say I can maintain this lifestyle, I'm curious to learn more. I'm curious to grow more. I love how I feel. That means a variety of things. That means they're injury free. That means they finished well enough within their expectations or beyond, where it's like, I see how I can do this. I gain confidence. I see a path of this lifestyle being permanent. I also have maintained relationships and balance in my life with regards to my family and my work, that I'm not, a robot now. And
they've learned to incorporate those self-care practices that support that.
Exactly.
So that they're.
So you mentioned injury in there, and I thought about this earlier in our conversation. I'm thinking that, when people can overtrain, and do you see a lot of injury, or when you guys when you're setting up training plans for people, are you taking into account like rest days, and how do you avoid injury? I mean, I seem to pull a muscle all the time, and maybe I'm just not stretching enough, but what is your biggest suggestion on avoiding injury?
This could be an hour-long topic.
Sorry, just throw something out.
I mean, people come, when injuries show up, it's a sign. Are you ignoring? Do you not have that relationship to your body and training? Right, training, they just want to check the boxes. They're not giving valid feedback to, what's actually going on in the workout, and not because they're lying, but they haven't tapped into themselves. They don't build that relationship. Nutritionally,
listening to your body.
Yeah. Nutritionally, are they not eating enough which is what I run into. I do, run into low energy availability way more. I probably can count on my hand how many times I've had to tell people to eat less. It's generally, they're not eating enough for their, right? So how are you getting enough nutrients to support your lifestyle? So, those two things I'd say are the biggest things. And then, obviously biomechanics come into some play. Again, hydration always comes into play with injuries. Sometimes it's emotional. So again, depending how you get to know someone and what their relationship to their injuries, sometimes it's like they have a story that they're always injured, or they're just that one that's injured, and it's sort of unpacking a lot of things. But top is their relationship to their training, and nutritionally, are they getting what they need, I guess, and hydration.
You can see she's the empathetic one.
Yeah.
I don't even go to half those places. I might send them to Emilee when it's time for that. But yeah, I mean, there's a variety of concepts.
They leave you when they're injured. They come to me.
Exactly.
If they can't do the training, they're like, "Oh, I'm off," and then it's like, "Okay, good."
Might as well deal with Emilee.
Yeah.
He gets to do the fun stuff. I do the stuff that is like the foundation to
the work, the hard work.
Yes, the hard work that nobody.
It is the hard work.
Yes, he gets the fun stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's like the good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But from an injury standpoint, one of the things, and again, mindset, right? Stop trying to win at your hobby, right? Like take the edge off a little bit. We were just talking to a client yesterday where it's like, okay, if you feel excited to train and you want to do more, then we're doing it just right.
But then again, that comes to where he says that, I talked to her afterwards, and it's more of like, why do you always have to check the boxes? It's like her feelings of not being good enough, her feelings of like him thinking that she's not doing her job. Like, it comes to a bigger,
she's not capable of more. And
yeah, they feel this failure, right? So it's, we have to unpack that for them to be able to not just check the boxes and understand that you need to like check in with your body. People have to learn that. They don't know.
Yeah. And, it's also a mindset of training, if I'm sweating and I feel the burn and I'm exhausted, that was a good workout. Well, in a lot of cases, in most cases, especially in the endurance world, that's not the desired outcome, right? Like if you're getting ready for sprint or shorter events, yeah, maybe occasionally you need those sort of high intensity workouts, but the rest of the time it's very focused around certain zones or effort levels. Again, you want to be able to string together many workouts, not just one hero workout and then be exhausted or flat or not really performing the other two. Consistency trumps volume and effort every single time, right? Consistency.
More is not always better.
Exactly. And so the more you can remain consistent, the better you're going to be especially as an endurance athlete, but I would argue in about anything. Because you're injury free, you're absorbing the training, you're recovering properly. And so everything is a little bit more in sync. And so avoiding injuries or working through injuries is about self-awareness, listening to your body, and then really sort of working into, well, what is it I'm doing that allows me or leaves me in this position? And it's never the prior 24 or 48 hours. It's something a week ago or 2 weeks ago that you started overreaching or pushing through what we call a niggle, or, bad sleep, or you skipped a few meals because, I'm on the road and this, and then did a high intensity workout, or, did a workout that was way outside the box and I was undernourished. And these things start compounding. And like Emilee was saying earlier, stress is stress is stress is stress. The body doesn't know any different. It's just like you're depleting me. And you're not filling me back up, whether it's in fuel or it's in recovery or in sleep. And so therefore, eventually something literally breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think we could go on and on. There's like so many topics that we touched on that we could dive deeper. I feel like we may have to have you guys on for a part 2, but as we wrap up this conversation, we just love leaving our listeners with like a simple or practical tip that they can implement immediately, like tomorrow or the next day. What would each of your tips be? Just simple steps. So maybe it's from, it's to tackle an endurance event, or to, incorporate that consistency, like you mentioned. What would be your top suggestion?
You go first.
I go first.
I know you've already said a lot, but just like your top,
because mine will depend on what you say.
I love that. Right. Well, when you just said that with regards to choosing or defining an endurance event, I think one of the things I ask for in my athletes in our first conversation is passion, right? It has to be curious to you. It has to be something that's going to sustain your motivation, because motivation is fickle. Motivation lasts very short. And then when you're in the dog days of training, what swings your legs out of bed in the morning? What is it? A fear that you might not finish or complete what you said you would wanted to do? That helps. Is it some sort of curiosity? I've never done something like this and I want to find out more about myself. There's so many angles to go at it, but it has to be something that really combines passion, curiosity, maybe a bit of fear and growth to that, so that it sustains you. The curiosity and passion sustains you. Because if you do something where you already know the outcome or can envision how you'll perform, you're not going to do the hard work. It's not going to get you out of bed in the morning. And, I often hear this, I want to be a good role model for my kids and show them what health and fitness looks like. And I always say, well, they're not up at 4:30 when you have to do it before work. So good luck with that. Like, let's find something else, right? And while you're on a Saturday morning, getting on your bike or going for a long run, and they're at home watching cartoons, eating waffles, getting ready for their soccer game, they're not around, right? You're going to need some passion, curiosity, a little bit of fear and growth around that.
He's really short and succinct, isn't he?
Yeah. What about you, Emilee?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. And I think, I'm just thinking of the top things that come across me and my client base. And again, most of middle-aged women, I'd say the one thing, if you can do to lower overall stress, improve the quality of your workout and get better results, is stop doing fasted workouts. Like, eat a little something before your workout, because it doesn't work at this age. So that's something you can start doing tomorrow.
Great advice.
It can have an enormous impact on how your workout goes. And again, just fasted workouts are stressful. So you're just exasperating the cortisol levels. So that's something you can do.
And I'm sure we would love to dive into that deeper at another time.
Yeah, I know.
But thank you for that wonderful
You just blew
advice.
up half the internet by saying,
yeah, totally.
I know, right? I love it. I love
it. You guys' rating just went like.
So our listeners are going to want to know how people can work with you guys, find you guys. We'll link it all up in the show notes, but if you could just quickly let them know, that would be great.
I mean, I do one-on-one consulting and then group programs and live retreats. So that's.
And how can they find you though?
It's just my name, emiliewise.com. I do have an Instagram. I'm not really good at that, but it's out there. And there are details out there. It goes in spurts.
Okay. emiliewise.com, and we'll link
it. With 2 E's. So you have to spell it right.
Yep.
Emilee. Oh.
Yeah. And me, I can be found probably best is on that social network called Instagram with AIMP Coach, AIMP Coach. AIMP stands for Advancing the Integration of Mindset on Performance. And so, that's a good spot, or my website, aimpcoaching.com. But people seem to not have a difficulty in finding me. So that's a good thing.
Yep, for sure. Great. You stand out there in the crowd in the health and wellness space.
He makes sure he does.
So as we wrap up this conversation, Emilee and Chris, one question that we like to ask all of our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
I'm going first again.
No, I'll go.
Okay.
I think it's easy. I think it's sort of what we've been talking about this whole time, is living well is an art, that it is about piecing together these different self-care practices that support the work that you're doing inside. And that's dynamic. It's always shifting, being aware that we can't implement every self-care practice all at once, but being able to piece it together is sort of an art in itself.
Yeah. I'm going to piggyback on that self-care, because a lot of people seem to think self-care is selfish. And, when we take care of ourselves, we have more energy to give others. And especially whether it's you start your day like that or end your day, or even in the middle of your day, you just come back with this vigor and vitality and sort of glow that people pick up on. And your energy towards others is so much more giving and therefore rewarding to you that it just sort of completes that circle. And so I highlight to a lot of people, like, this isn't selfish and focusing on yourself is that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's about that you took care of yourself in order to fill your cup to empty it for others. Right.
And I was going to say, we come back to that. A lot of clients say, not just his clients, but I say the reason for doing things is because they want to be a role model for their kids. And you gotta model it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to do it for yourself, right?
Right.
Like,
and
that's great. Like, that's just like a side benefit that your kids are seeing what you're doing.
No, but I mean, they see the benefits, like you said, when you do it, you model it, that you're happier, you have more energy, you're more understanding, you can listen better, you don't snap at them, like all those things when you're taking care of yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love what you guys said. Very relevant to all of our listeners, I know. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on our show today.
Thank you for having
really fun. You're such a good balance between the two of you.
Love the dynamic.
I love the dynamic. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And
have a great day.
Great day.
All right. You too.
All right, you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.